Hi.
Hi. Well, I feel very honored to be sitting on this stage with you all. Everyone, this panel represents every corner of the earth. And the stories of these brave individuals is not a story of choice. They were not thrust into this fight by choice, they were thrust in by something that happened to them. So I invite you all to listen to these stories, to understand where they came from, and the power of the choices that they took to make this world a freer and more dignified place. So, I would love to start with something quite personal to all of you, which is your families. And Tanele,
Ah, wow.
yes,
Me.
I am going to start with you. We saw in that video a small bit of your story, and you founded the Thulani Foundation in the name of your late husband, who was assassinated by the regime. Now, I'd love to explore with you, how has that affected your children, not in the death of their father, but in your role coming into the activism? How do they see you in your role as the leader of this foundation?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tanele Maseko. I come from Swaziland, as they've correctly said. As you know, Swaziland is the last absolute monarch in Africa. Now, my husband was shot in front of myself and our two young boys. We had to pick up his brain mass. Now, you're asking me a very difficult question, but family is the foundation of any society. We all come from families. Family grounds us. Family is our sense of belonging. Now, my two boys see me as a warrior. They are my two biggest supporters. But I worry at times to say, as I continue with the work, won't I not follow suit as my husband? But equally then, within that pain, I then find power to fight back and confront the status quo. So to answer your question, I remain resolute, committed to the cause for democracy and human rights in Swaziland, because my husband had a deep conviction for freedom, social justice, and the rule of law. So whilst he is in that shallow grave, mine is to amplify his voice. But not only his voice, the voice of different victims of extrajudicial killings, the voices of these widows. I want to amplify their voices so that we continue the fight. So ours is not to be silent, but ours is to confront, be committed, and push back.
I'm sure they're very proud of you. Very, very proud indeed. Jhanisse, what has it been like to balance the hope of building a family and your activism? How do you navigate these questions that are so personal, but in your case are extraordinary?
Thank you, Nia. Thank you to the BLISS team to begin with for having us here and for the amazing work that you're doing. I really appreciate the opportunity as an activist to be able to share this. And, you know, starting activism at 20 years old as a single woman, it has been a very challenging experience to try to navigate social life and dating life while also being an activist. And one thing I wanted to mention today, speaking not just for myself, but actually for my movement as well, is that when we confronted the 2019 fires and persecution in Bolivia, as many of you know, when there is a national disaster such as an earthquake or fires, usually the whole country stops and focuses on that in order to bring relief. In our case, the government was and continues to completely deny that this is happening while we try to do the humanitarian work as we're being persecuted by the government. That's a completely disorienting experience that has affected all of our relationships. And after you asked this question, I was thinking on my way to BLISS that actually in 2019, the first time we confronted this, absolutely everyone in my movement lost their partners. whether it was a marriage or someone that they were dating, there were so many divorces because we spent so much time in the fires, and it was such a difficult experience to process that it really affected our personal lives. And ever since, even when it comes to family, I have left my parents' homes. I try not to talk to them when I'm in Bolivia because I know I'm being followed. There have been people outside of my parents' houses chasing them and threatening them with guns to get information about me. So it's a very complicated experience to navigate, but that's also why I'm so thankful to the BLISS ecosystem, to Blue Spirit. We have here Aneta and Steven, who have been providing support for activists in terms of mental health, because I don't think that it's impossible to have healthy relationships when you're an activist. There is a place for that. I just think we may have to do a little extra work to have the skills to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Nataliya, your activism started when you were only a child, and I know that your parents have done a lot to pull you out sometimes of that activism, of that fight. I'm sure that's been very hard. You have fought alongside other young people, and I want to explore with you, what is the role of young people in this fight, especially in the Ukraine?
Well, my experience with civic movement started in high school. I wasn't that little. So it was the first major revolution that I lived through, and I think a big part of it was because our school principal told us not to participate. That's why we participated. So it was fun. It was a life experience that we carried all the way through to the second revolution, which is called Revolution of Dignity. Then me and my friends, we were just fresh out of college, and that was the conscious decision. Like, we are doing this because we are fighting for our freedom and of our potential children. And then when the invasion started, it all went the opposite way because we lost our choice. The choice was made by the circumstances. Because in certain extreme situations, you find yourself thinking, if not us, then who? So it's more of a rhetorical question, of course. So that was, I think, the moment where we lost our youth. We had to grow up. We had to grow up very fast. We experienced, scary moments back in 2013 when protesters started disappearing. They were getting beaten up. They were shot and killed by snipers. But we were still feeling like we owned the situation. These past 3 years have been completely out of our control because we are not fighting our government. We are fighting a much bigger, stronger, better equipped, way richer enemy that just wants us dead for no reason. And that is the moment when you find yourself in this difficult situation where you basically dig your heels in and start getting to work, because on top of everything, you have survivor's guilt. When you have hundreds of people, of your own people, dying every single day. Over the past 3 years, Russia has launched over 10,000 missiles at Ukraine and over 15,000 drones. So every time that happens, you think, well, I survived this. I'm still here. There needs to be a good reason. So I need to work hard and make sure that we build something in our country even now that will prevent this from happening in the future. That if we do end up having children, but that's difficult, I agree, that they will not have to go through something like this. And of course, my parents hate that. They would love for me to do something like this from a safe place like the US. But I don't, you still have to understand, we're all risking it, right? But it's about not taking unnecessary risks, because I do believe that our lives matter a lot, not only to our children, our parents, our friends, but to the futures of our countries. So we're not our own enemies. Like we have our backs, but we understand that we should be the ones doing the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very beautiful answer. Now, Paul, many of us know about your story in Rwanda, but today I know that you want to speak about something that's happening right now in a neighboring country of Congo. So please tell us, what is the current situation in Congo? What is happening?
First of all, I will start by what happened in 1994 when I stood up for what I believed in. I believed that no human being should kill a human being. And then I happened to help 1,268 people to survive a death when an average of about between 8,500 and 10,000 people are being killed every day in a small country like Rwanda, which has only 15,000 square miles, and we had 7 million that time. So I stood up, and at the end of all of that, there was a new government led by today's Rwandan President Paul Kagame, which started on August 19th, 1994. On October 18th, 1996, the same government which was presented as a victim of the Rwandan genocide is the one which invaded a neighboring country, the Congo. And if you read the United Nations mapping report, that was an investigation done by the United Nations in the Congo. The Rwandan army at that time killed more than 500,000 Rwandan refugees. And according to that humanitarian report, which came out on October 1st, 2010, that the Congolese, about 10 million Congolese have been killed. And yet, once again, as human beings, we pretended not to see, we pretended not to hear what was going on in the Congo, where millions were being butchered. In 2013, President Obama stopped it. And when Obama stopped it in 2022, that now the Rwandan army went back to the Congo, calling itself the M23. But we know that M23 does not exist. It is the Rwandan army which took the city of Goma, a city of 1.5 million people. In Goma, they are killing millions of people. All of these people in Goma are displaced. They have got nowhere to live. They are being even killed in refugee camps, in displaced camps. So the whole city is empty, kind of, because everybody is outside of the city. Last week, just this last week, this is what I was reading about 2 hours ago. Last week, the Rwandan army killed 700 people around Goma and injured 2,800 people. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot I can say, but I don't have too much time. To you human beings, my message to you is very clear. Be those people you are, be humanitarians and save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. When I first asked Paul about the movie and about what the benefit was of having his story in the spotlight, he told us it brought that story to people like all of us in this room. And it brought a lot of recognition to the movement, and it was a really positive thing. But then I spoke to Jhanisse about a different kind of spotlight, a spotlight of your government following you and what that feels like. And Jhanisse, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how that attention and that spotlight has affected you as an individual.
Curiously enough, the initial disinformation campaigns against me were not publicized by the Bolivian regime or their networks, but instead they came from Russian journalists who made this incredible discovery in an investigation that there was a CIA agent in Bolivia operating to take out the government. And when that happened, obviously it was also disorienting because being in Bolivia in the middle of a fire, you wonder, why is this relevant to Russia? In time, we came to know why, the very close relations. But the truly difficult thing for me to manage was that right after that happened, a new feminist movement began in Bolivia that had a lot of personal information about myself, my relationship with my parents' divorce, my relationship even with coworkers, that I came in time to know that had been given to the government by my best friend from childhood who received money to give this information. And to see that personal information spread around social media by so-called feminist movements was very difficult. And yet at the same time, it brought so much attention from people that it also helped us reach people that we had never reached before. And thanks to that, just this last year, we managed to mobilize 40 tons of equipment for firefighters through completely informal means. So it is a haunting experience to be on the receiving end of that, but there's always a way to twist it around in one's benefit, I think.
Yes, incredible. Tanele, when you think of your husband in his fight, what is the most inspiring thing you witnessed him do?
Thank you for that question, Nia. I think the most inspiring thing about my late husband was that he did not stop, number one. Number two, he did not give up. That said, I'd want to appreciate certain people in this space who then took the fight on his behalf. When he was arrested in 2014, put in solitary confinement, it was the Human Rights Foundation, HRF, who located Tulani. And them locating Tulani put him on a platform which then took the Swaziland question into the fore. So the HRF started writing letters to the government. And then once that started happening, I started speaking out to say that gross human rights violations that are happening in the country. That gave me protection. The platform that HRF provided gave me a platform to amplify what was happening in the country. But number two, I think it is the level of commitment to be rooted with your people on the ground. He did not tire. Even after prison, he went back on the ground, organized, mobilized, spoke truth to power. So after his killing, I did not stop. I established the Tanele Maseko Foundation, which is a foundation that looks into fighting these extrajudicial killings, but equally housing widows to say, yes, our husbands have been killed, but how do we fight back? So what keeps me going is the fact that democracy is coming in Swaziland. And for me to contribute every day in organizing civil society actors, in organizing human rights defenders, and in organizing women on the ground for us to stand up and speak out. So that is our driving force as the Tanele Maseko Foundation.
Thank you for what you do. Tanele, thank you. Nataliya, when the war ends in Ukraine, what will you go and do there? What do you envision?
So for us, the end of the war is not the end goal, right? What matters is what happens after that. And what happens after that needs to be built on the foundation that we're trying to form now. And this is the foundation for a freer, for a more dignified and more prosperous future. And hopefully this can also be something that is an example to everyone else, because we know that terrible things are happening in a number of places around the world. But you know, over these past 3 years, I've realized something, that all of us have this like hidden factory setting, if I may say, and it's called resilience. And it gets unlocked when something crazy and something you've never expected happens to you, and somehow you survive. You know, every time I turn on the news, go on the social media, I see absolutely terrible things happening, and I die a little bit on the inside, you know? But I'm still functioning, I'm still alive, because we have a goal. And this goal needs to be freedom, because freedom is worth fighting for. The problem is, it's very difficult to get freedom, it's very easy to lose it, and it's like absolutely unbelievably hard to keep it, because you tend to get complacent, right? So I think our goal, those who are bleeding for freedom so that others don't have to bleed for freedom, like it's our time to work together to make sure that we survive this vicious cycle right now and then break free of it. And we never, ever have to come back to it again. And we know what we need to do. All of us do. It just takes a lot of time, effort, perseverance, a bit of craziness, and a lot of stubbornness, I think. But that's all of us here have that.
Paul, I've had the wonderful honor of spending time with your daughters, and they were here last year without you. And they told us about the fight that they were having to get you out of imprisonment. And you're someone who really understands what it means to lose your freedom and be imprisoned. But I want to ask you potentially quite a silly question, but what was the first thing that you ate when you came out of prison? What did you have? What did you want?
That is a very interesting and exciting question. You know, today I'm with my wife here and one of my daughters. I had missed a lot in prison. As Leopoldo said, I was also in a solitary confinement for 2 years and 7 months, not talking to anyone, and the food in prison is just corn and beans. So that is what you eat 365 days a year. So I wanted, when I came out of prison, I wanted to taste. In Kinyarwanda, we do not say that we eat. We don't drink, we taste. I just wanted to taste a steak and also what we call bugali. Bugali in Kinyarwanda is the cassava dough. So I just wanted to taste that. By the way, I did not tell you, the reason why Rwanda has been attacking the Congo is because Rwanda has been rooting minerals. Yeah. The Congo is the richest countries in the world in minerals. Rwanda has got no single pound or kilogram of minerals, but is the best seller in the whole world. It sells the minerals, it goes to steel in the Congo, then the whole world signs contracts with Rwanda, buys minerals from Rwanda. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Jhanisse, I have a final question for you. I know that as well as your own activism, you work with activists all around the world, and a lot of you, as I said, have been thrust into activism because of something that's happened to you. So what would you say to the people in this room who have not had an experience like that? How can they find the inspiration to be activists and to commit to this fight every day?
Well, first of all, come to BLISS. I think that's a great place to start. But I think even if you haven't really experienced a dictatorship on your own, we heard from Ana Corina yesterday. Venezuela was one of the brightest democracies in our region, and now we can see what happened. So protecting democracy in another country is like buying a life insurance for your own democracy. And I think that's the best way we can think about it. And to be also fully honest with you, being an activist myself, working with so many that I consider family, we are crazy. So we are going to continue to do this, whether we have support or not. I think if the alliance and the unity comes, then we will make sure that what we're doing is actually more successful than we thought it would be. But the work will continue to get done. It's inevitable. It's the human spirit. It's the search for freedom, life itself. So I trust that BLISS is one of the places where we will see the success becoming even more impactful.
Thank you. And I say it with all of the truth in my heart that from BLISS, from DemoLab, from the Reynolds Foundation, we will always, always make sure to build a platform for your voices, because despite your stories, you have beautiful voices and you inspire all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.